I'm Matan. I've grown up overseas my entire life. I know Director of Teaching and Learning, Miss Sargent Beasley, has as well. This is Teachers Are People Too for School Buzz. We're going to be interviewing Miss Beasley, talking about her experiences overseas, her experiences in school, and just trying to really learn about our teachers. And I think a lot of times when we think about our teachers, we really think about them as teachers only and not people. And I know that that's been an experience for me because my parents are teachers, and I know that her parents were teachers too.
And your parents are people.
And my parents are people too.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good experience and to learn about your teachers a little bit. Let's get started. How are you so far?
Brilliant. Ask
right.
me in a few minutes.
So we're going to start out basic. Where were you born?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Right. And I know your father worked internationally in different international schools, right?
That's correct.
So how soon after you were born did you move overseas?
I was probably 5.5 or 6.
Where did you move first?
We moved to Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
And then after that?
Iran.
And after that?
New Hampshire.
Did you like the Middle East?
We did, very much.
Do you think that you growing up internationally influenced your decision to become an international teacher and live overseas?
I think so. I think growing up internationally kind of gives you these feet that need to keep moving. You have this wanderlust that you can't really shed, no matter how much you try.
So how many different countries have you lived in?
So let's see, Lebanon, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and India. So I graduated from the American Embassy School in New Delhi, India.
So then where did you go to college?
Virginia schools. George Mason was for my BA.
What did you study?
Geography.
Geography.
Yeah.
So
I didn't mean to study geography. I wanted to study geology. But the offices were side by side.
Yeah.
And after I'd gotten in there, I was like, not necessarily too embarrassed, but I went through all this trouble to fill out the paperwork and decided that what the heck, I'll stay in geography. And it was a great decision.
So you mistook geography for geology.
They were side by side, what can I say?
So how did you make the decision to live yourself overseas and become a teacher?
I always wanted to, but I didn't think that we'd be able to. I took a number of different paths, and then do you have time? I can tell you the whole story.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I'm sitting in Dayton, Virginia, on this knoll, my children's elementary school surrounding me, and we're having a picnic. In the South, we like to have picnics. And so the whole school was invited, and the sun was setting, and there, farmland all around. And it dawned on me that if we didn't make a move, that on this day, every year for the next 12 years, I would be sitting here and not somewhere else. And it was the decision to say, well, it's time to go.
The year after that, you decided to move?
Well, yeah. That moment, we decided that we moved, and you have to find a job, right?
Right.
So then that's what we did. I looked for a job, and there wasn't much open. Fortunately, I'm pretty fatalistic. I think if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and the match will come. And there was an opening in Chennai, India. I always wanted to go back to India, and it was a very good match for me, and it worked.
So how old were your children when you moved overseas?
Connor was in 4th grade. Brenneman was in 2nd grade.
How did you meet your husband?
I worked in a bar, in a restaurant, and he was a customer. How romantic is that?
That's so funny.
It's just romantic, yeah.
So what did you teach in India?
I was the curriculum person in India.
Okay.
So I was in charge of the
So
curriculum.
how did you work your way up the ladder to become principal?
Sheer skill, and I don't always know how that works. I know I had my goals. I have 5-year goals, and so I think for some people, they're satisfied with a status quo. I tend to be somebody that is always wanting to learn and to do something different and to put it into practice. And I wanted to lead. I wanted to be in a position where I could work with people. And so it was never my goal to be a curriculum person for the rest of my life. My goal was to learn more about curriculum, learn more about leadership, and then to see where it took me. And this is where it has taken me.
I know your father was also a head of a school. He was actually my principal when I was
I think I
very
must have
young.
met you.
Maybe. It's
but
possible.
I know I met your mom and your dad when they were there.
But it's crazy how the international school world is so small.
Right.
You know, it's all these countries all over the world and all these schools, but it's everyone's sort of connected
Right.
through this school network. So my parents are also teachers. Was it weird you growing up with your dad at the same school as you? And mom too, I think, right?
Yeah, mom too. Oh, okay, that was weird when she taught me algebra.
Mhm.
That wasn't fun at all. That was really not good.
So what subjects did you like and what subjects did you not like?
Okay. It wasn't the subject. It was usually the teacher, right?
Right.
So,
Did you enjoy having your mom as a teacher?
no,
No?
but don't tell her that.
Why not?
That was weird.
I know when I had
In
my
seventh grade,
dad,
that's weird.
I had my dad, and I didn't call him anything, right? I didn't
Right.
say Mr. Horowitz or Dad. I just
Right.
raised my hand.
I snapped.
You snapped,
I didn't snap. I didn't call any attention to myself.
right? Because it's you don't know what to say. You can say Dad, which
Yeah.
is weird for everyone
Yeah.
else.
Father.
Father, which is even like it's so awkward. Or you can say Mr. Horowitz, which is like so out of the ordinary to call your
Right.
dad Mr. Horowitz. You know.
True.
You moved overseas.
Mm-hmm.
You went to college.
Yep.
Did you start teaching out of college?
I did. So James and I moved to where we live now when we're in the States, Harrisonburg, Virginia. And I got my master's and then taught right after that. Taught fifth grade and then went right into the middle school, science.
So, for how many years were you in like the public school system, and then before you moved overseas?
I think I was in the public school system for 9 years and then went back to school to work on my doctorate. And then
Are you a doctor?
No, I was afraid you were going to ask that question. I realized I opened Pandora's box. So everything, but I didn't do the dissertation. So they call that ABG. So another acronym.
So what would you be like? What would
Yeah,
make
Dr.
still,
Sargent Beasley. I think that sounds great, but it will never happen.
why didn't you do a dissertation?
Life kind of got in the way, and I had to reprioritize, and so I did, and yeah, I'm okay with it now.
Okay, so was it scary for you to move overseas for the first time, to like move everything and like sort of
With the family?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. More excited than nervous.
Do you wish you sort of did anything different?
In my life? No, I don't think so. Okay, so I know that sounds kind of Pollyannish. No, again, going back to that fatalism, I think that sometimes we're dealt a hand, we make a decision, we deal with it, and we move on, and we make the best of it. And if we look back and regret, maybe regret an event, but nothing that led to something, significant.
Okay, so what would be like some advice you'd give to some young people in school about to graduate, to your son, maybe to your daughter?
Goals.
Goals, set goals for
Set
yourself?
goals. Set goals. I think that even if we work hard and our goal ends up being something different, or we get to a different place, at least it was intentional. At least we're not letting life happen to us. I mean, I really believe that we are ultimately completely responsible for ourselves. And life is what we make of it. And if we make the right decisions and surround ourselves with the best people, you can't go wrong.
But I mean, I know in my case at least, I have no idea what my goals are.
Yeah.
I don't know where I want to be in 5 years. So my sort of approach to it is just sort of like let life sort of take me where it goes and then see
You can
where
have
it goes.
short-term goals, right? Sometimes you're ready for long-term goals. I would have to say my 5-year goals began when I decided to leave teaching in the classroom. And I realized that I wanted something different, something else, but I didn't want to leave education. So I had to set a goal. Now you guys are going back as third culture kids, and we could
Right.
have a whole talk on what that's like to go back to school when you go home and it's not home. And I think that, those goals can be small goals.
I want to go back to this third culture kid thing
Yeah.
because it's really interesting for me and for a lot of other people to sort of like move around and not really have a permanent home. So like when you go back to college, I know my sister really struggled with the transition
Right.
because
So-
everyone's from one place and they go home for the summer and they go home for Thanksgiving and things like that. And you never really have like a permanent home.
Right.
So what was that like for you going to college after like living all over?
I think it was, there were elements of it that were very difficult. I think probably because you weren't able to anticipate what would be difficult. They have holidays, they do things, they go to a football game and they know what to do, and it's you, and yet people assume that you know what's going on because you look like you're supposed to. And so for Thanksgiving or for any kind of event, I think it was hard. And I think you have to accept that you grew up differently, and you have to accept that the experience that your friends are having is not the same as the experience that you're having, and yet it's different, but it's good. And
because when I saw schools this past break, it was bizarre to me to have like college football.
Right.
It's a weird like thing to have, and that sort of
weird.
really like school spirit like attitude, because I've never lived in a place with that.
Right.
Did you struggle with like that college football, that like rah that
I think okay, so I do have a piece of advice. Because it was so different, I shied away from it, and so I didn't necessarily immerse myself in what was being presented because it just seems so foreign to me. And my recommendation is, if it just like you live over here, just experience it. Go for it. Go to the games. Go to the whatever they're doing. And people might seem at times different, superficial. Like there might not be a connection, and yet for anybody, if you get to know them or you get to know what they find fun, generally you can find fun.
So you should really immerse yourself in like the college.
I think so.
Culture.
Yeah, I think I can only speak personally. I think sometimes it's easier to just say, "Wow, this doesn't feel comfortable," or whatever. Or they know what they're doing. They've already got their group of friends, and it's you tend to push yourself into the periphery when really, I mean, that might be a goal, is to just make myself a little bit vulnerable and go in there and try to do it and have fun.
Do you think being a third culture kid and growing up overseas gave you a different perspective on life than a lot of other kids?
I think it gave me, yes, but I think the different perspective on life is a different perspective on humans. What does it mean to be a human, and to be able to recognize that, wow, people can look so different. Their value systems might even be different, but at the end of the day, it's somebody that we're sharing this planet with, and every single year that planet becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and we need to figure it out.
I think for me it's really interesting to like meet all these different people from different cultures, and people say, oh, like, is it weird to have friends from different places and to have different cultures? And at this point, I mean, I've gotten used to it, so you don't really think about it. It's just sort of second nature to say, like, yeah, they have a different culture than me, and that's fine. I think it's a really good perspective to have.
I agree.
And I think a lot of people should move overseas for a year, 2 years to see what it's like to sort of be out of your comfort zone, and like be a foreigner for a little while. Because I know my friends in the U.S., they've never been foreigners, and it's a totally different experience to be a foreigner.
Absolutely.
When you're in a new culture, do you try and like immerse yourself in that culture, or do you sort of like learn it first and then dabble in it?
You learn it first, then dabble, probably. And yeah, I think some parts of the culture are more easily, infiltrated, and others are more difficult. And but to definitely experience it, and you can never be of that country. You are always an other, but that other plays a critical role in establishing relationships and coming from a place of understanding, which means there's a place of knowing. And so to try to get to understand and know the culture before you.
I know you have to go soon.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matan. Very
this
much.
is Teachers Are People Too.
Oh, thank God.